So many times I have had people tell me, one day you are going to miss this moment. This moment is being a mom of young kids. It's navigating a career and a spouse's career. It's trying to stay relevant and on top of life. And well, life can feel like a lot when you feel like you're getting old. So on today's first episode of Cold Coffee, I had my coffee this morning with founder of Muscle-Centric Medicine and New York Times bestselling author of Forever Strong, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. She was here in studio and she's taking the internet by storm with her unique and cutting-edge ideas on how to stay young and strong at any age. Gabrielle, the term muscle health, it sounds very simple, but tell me more about the term and why you focus on it specifically.
I love that question. And it's actually a way of framing it would be muscle-centric health or muscle-centric medicine. It is the idea that skeletal muscle is the pinnacle of health and wellness. It is actually the largest organ. It's an organ system in the body, and it really determines everything about how we age. The diseases of aging and also the idea of obesity, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, even PCOS, which is the number one cause of infertility in the world, it begins in skeletal muscle first.
That's incredible. And you're talking about aging. And since we are in a safe space, I am going to be turning 40 at the end of this year. And I am absolutely petrified because everything that you hear and see about over the hill is connected to specifically how muscle and bone density starts to immediately decline and drastically, and then it just continues to get worse. How can we retain muscle mass as we age without absolutely having to live in the gym 24 hours a day?
Well, the great news is it is not inevitable. The idea that skeletal muscle mass must decline is not actually true. Certainly, the older we get, in your 80s and 90s, there is a natural progression that happens, and we've all seen this idea. But weakness is optional. And when we think about these body composition changes that happen that people often associate with menopause, it can be just as simple as redefining what we value in terms of habits and standards. So skeletal muscle, by doing resistance training, have a diet optimized for protein, you can prevent a lot of what you see. One of the things that happens is we become less active. We prioritize other things. But if you are continuously stimulating muscle, then that decline that we hear about does not have to happen.
Right. So you're talking about protein, you're talking about being active. And so building muscle, a lot of times we think it sounds simple. Okay, I'm going to hit my protein, levels, and I'm also going to be working out. But why does it feel so hard? And how important is mindset when we're looking at truly building that muscle-centric health that you're talking about?
It's a bidirectional relationship. A strong body begets a strong mind, and a strong mind begets a strong body. It is simple. We really overcomplicate things, and we prioritize other forms of activity. And listen, cardio, Pilates, yoga, they're all wonderful. But as we age, there is no replacement for doing resistance training. And a lot of women will say, you know what? I am so afraid of getting bulky.
Right.
I don't want to train because if I train, either I'm going to get bulky or that's too heavy. How much does your toddler weigh?
Probably, I would say like 60 pounds. Like yeah.
Do you pick him up?
All the time.
And you wouldn't think twice about it?
No.
But if you went to the gym and you saw a kettlebell that was 60 pounds, you would think twice about picking that up.
Yeah.
But these are strong girl numbers.
Right.
And you can absolutely do more than you think you can. And everybody listening can do more than they think they can. And we've disassociated with why we exercise and life. And we're not training to become better at exercise. We're training to become better at life. And so that we age on our own terms. And it doesn't have to be hours at the gym. I train 3 days a week with weights. On the fourth day, on a Saturday, I might do, which you should come.
Yes, I would love to.
We could totally film it. It would be amazing.
Yeah.
The fourth day, I do some kind of high intensity, but it is all scalable. But I don't replace weight training with other activities.
Right. So, okay, so we're talking a little bit about the actual working out process and the mindset that goes with it. When I wake up, I want to feel strong. I want to feel sharp. I want to feel like I'm going to tackle my day. But oftentimes, the first thing that goes into my mouth is coffee.
And that's okay.
Is it? Okay,
Yeah.
so how important is the first thing in the morning when we wake up? How important is what we put in our mouth?
That is a wonderful question, and here's why. Because as women, we're really busy. And that first meal of the day is actually the most important. The first and the last meal, I cover this in my book, Forever Strong, which is actually why I wrote the book, was to simplify strategies for people. When you wake up after an overnight fast, your muscle is primed for nutrition. That first meal of the day doesn't have to be right when you wake up, but it should have between 30 and 50 grams of dietary protein.
Okay.
You stimulate muscle from the protein that you eat. There are two ways to stimulate that tissue, and it's through resistance training or dietary protein.
Okay.
And when you do this, you prioritize protein first thing. You stop that catabolic action that's happening in an overnight fast, which means you are no longer taking away from your muscle, because your muscle is required for the rebuild and repair process that is always happening. Therefore, it is primed in the morning to receive nutrients. And when you prioritize protein, well, you protect muscle, but you also no longer have to depend on willpower. So when you come in to the studio and you see a donut, you are satiated. You're already full from the protein that you've had. And the average woman has about 68 grams of protein a day. I recommend, and the science supports, closer to 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of target body weight.
So that might be a lot for some women. And does it, I mean, that is what you think we should be following.
Well, it's what the science shows.
Right.
The current recommendation for dietary protein has not changed in the last 50 years. And that means one of two things. Number one, that we haven't gotten any new science, or number two, that the recommendations have not caught up with where the science is.
Right.
And we know that if you undereat dietary protein, that you cannot keep up with the rebuild and repair processes in the body. The body requires 250 to 300 grams of protein a day for turnover of all tissues. Your body replaces itself 4 times a year. And that is why we need protein. It's the most important essential macronutrient. We actually need more of it as we age, not less.
So is all protein created equally?
No, it's not. And you're smiling because you know that this, this question is very heated.
It is.
Nutritional science is a highly discussed and debated topic.
Yeah.
There are 2 types of protein. There are high quality proteins and there are low quality proteins. This is purely based on the amino acid content. Amino acids are the building blocks that make up various proteins. The difference is, in a high quality protein, it has all the amino acids necessary for your body and your muscle. This is important, in the appropriate amounts. So for example, you could have 4 ounces of beef or 4 ounces of chicken, and that would provide you with the essential amino acids. These are the amino acids that you must get from the diet. Your body cannot make it. A lower quality protein comes from a plant-based source. For example, do you remember when people were talking about quinoa?
Yes, it was like quinoa, and and we have those fads. We'll have quinoa, and
Right.
we'll also have celery juice, or Brussels sprouts went through their had their moment.
I'm glad I missed that one. I wasn't sure of that. I'm glad that skipped over me.
Yeah.
But quinoa, and I was, I moved here from New York City. Now I live full-time in Houston.
That's right. You heard it first.
It's
right here.
amazing.
Cold
And
coffee.
you would go to the juice bars and it would promote quinoa as a high protein meal.
Okay.
In order to get enough quinoa to equal a small chicken breast, it would take 6 cups of quinoa
Oh my
to
gosh.
equal the same amino acid profile that is needed for muscle health. There are other plant-based proteins like soy, which have a higher essential amino acid content. But this is a very important concept for people to understand. And the way I like to think about it is plants and animals are both really important in the diet. We're omnivores. We need fiber, we need phytonutrients. Those mostly come from plants. Mm-hmm. Protein is not ideally sourced from plants because, you mentioned menopause, because of the amount of carbohydrates that ride along with it and calories. So if you want to create a diet that works, it should have both plants and animals. But if one is able to prioritize the high quality proteins, and this can be eggs and it can be fish, things of that nature, it doesn't have to be beef.
Right. So I have said this on the show before. I am very interested in bodybuilding. And part of that is a little bit of the discipline that comes with it. And then again, full disclosure, a little bit is purely the aesthetic of it, that higher muscle, lower fat type of body. And it very much, again, is about that aesthetic. But how is your philosophy different?
Well, I believe that obesity is a symptom of unhealthy skeletal muscle.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw something out that I have never talked about publicly. Mm-hmm. We have this concept that body fat is most relevant, that once someone has 30% body fat, that they are unhealthy. Mm-hmm. But actually, it is the fat in the muscle. For example, there's a difference between a fillet and a ribeye. And when an individual is sedentary, fat builds up within skeletal muscle. During aging and sedentary behavior, there's no such thing as a healthy sedentary person. And when you recognize skeletal muscle as the primary focal point for health and wellness, a few things happen. You talk about bodybuilding, and I'm thrilled to know that you love mindset, these mindset conversations. Well, if you train and you focus on muscle, number one, it's something that is under your voluntary control. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of things in life that we cannot control, but strength and muscle, we certainly can control that. And that's where true health starts. When someone goes to the doctor and they see that they have elevated triglycerides or elevated glucose or high levels of insulin, you will often hear the term metabolic syndrome. Have you heard that term before?
Yes, metabolic syndrome, yeah.
Metabolic syndrome. That is often thought to ride along with obesity as the cause. Mm-hmm. It's not. It's unhealthy skeletal muscle first.
And so for those that might not know what metabolic syndrome is, what is that exactly?
Elevated triglycerides.
That's right, you just mentioned it.
High blood pressure, high insulin, high glucose.
A lot of what I think people in America experience.
Over 70%.
Wow. So the global health and wellness industry is projected to reach $9 trillion by 2028. What are some of the biggest misconceptions you wish would just absolutely go away?
Protein is bad for us.
Yeah.
Number one, red meat is bad for us. The science does not support this. If you look at high quality randomized controlled trials, the science does not support the information that we're hearing. And the new dietary guidelines, 2025 dietary guidelines, for example, it will say that a food would not be considered healthy, or a diet is not considered healthy if it is greater than 10% saturated fat. But if we take it one step further, let's say you and I have a diet that's 1,200 to 1,500 calories. And my husband, who you met, is a former Navy SEAL. He's a very large human. He might have a 4,000 calorie diet.
He's a very fit human.
He is.
If I may say so.
But if his diet, if we talk about some of the biggest myths, according to the guidelines, he can have 44 grams of saturated fat and be perfectly healthy. Whereas if we go above 15 grams of saturated fat, then our diet would be considered unhealthy. And so if we believe that saturated fat is unhealthy, then we have to recognize what's the number. Mm-hmm. Is it 44 grams? Is it 15 grams? Or is it that these guidelines are perpetuating an ability to weaponize food? Mm-hmm. And what do I mean by that? Would you consider egg healthy?
I would think so, yeah.
Egg is a very healthy food. It has bioavailable protein, choline, fat-soluble vitamins. It has 18% saturated fat. Therefore, egg would not be considered a healthy food.
That is so interesting.
And we have to really take a step back And when we think about designing a diet, we have to really question what information that we are getting and if it makes sense.
And I think that we can apply those things to so many
Absolutely.
areas of our life.
Absolutely.
What information are we getting, and how do we apply it to our life?
And what is the science?
And what is the science?
Show me the science. Where did 10% saturated fat come from?
Right.
You will not get an answer.
Right. So moving to your book, Forever Strong, a new science-based strategy for aging well. What are the key research components you have found? I mean, we're talking about the muscle-centric, that support your approach. And what are the key takeaways you want people listening to this right now to know?
Yes. The key takeaways are the following. Muscle is the focal point for health. It is your metabolic engine. It is where you store carbohydrates. It is where when you go to the doctor and you have fantastic triglycerides, fantastic blood glucose, amazing insulin, that means that your muscle is healthy. Mm-hmm. Muscle is your body armor. We are all going to face aging challenges. Aging is inevitable. Skeletal muscle is your body armor. That is what protects you. That is where you pull from nutrients to rebuild and repair your body. Mm-hmm. You must choose a diet which is optimized for protein and a lifestyle which is optimized for hard work through resistance training to age well. There is no way around it. There are no replacements, and aging is coming for all of us, God willing.
Well, I can't have this conversation without asking you about Ozempic.
I'm so glad you are.
And, your thoughts on that.
I don't know if I told you this, but I did my fellowship at WashU in nutritional sciences and geriatrics. I spent 2 years as a research fellow as well as a geriatrician. And I ran a weight loss clinic. Ozempic and these GLP-1s are more effective than anything and any medication that we have ever seen ever. I think that there is absolutely a place for them. They do not inherently destroy muscle. In fact, when you utilize dosing that is personalized, which in our clinic we use personalized dosing, you can get results that lower inflammation, that lower body fat, that help maintain muscle, that help treat and reframe people's obsession with food and even alcohol. These drugs, I believe, are very safe and effective and are the future. They're not going anywhere.
So, Gabrielle, would you say that people have to stay on them forever, though?
No.
How does that work?
We treat patients all the time. We have hundreds of patients, and we will put them on a microdose of Ozempic or tirzepatide, and they come off. It helps give them a boost, restart their metabolism, and we are able to titrate them off. When you have proper diet and lifestyle as the focal point, as your standard, forget goals. Mm-hmm. Let's not talk about goals. Goals come and go, but standards, they always remain. And when you are the type of person that gets up and chooses strength and chooses a diet that supports strength and aging, then you build a foundation that you age on your own terms.
So where should people start?
Everybody eats. You have to get nutrition right. And that is prioritizing. If the listener or the viewer does nothing else, start your day with 30 to 50 grams of protein. That's two scoops of a protein shake. You know what? I take that back. How about one scoop of a whey protein shake? You start your day with protein and you bookend your day with protein. And that could be salmon. It could be turkey. It could be fish. Do those two things. It is the thing that we all do, which is eat. Nail that and then come back and talk to me.
How can people find out more about you and your book and your information?
They can go to our website, which is drgabriellelyon.com. We have a massive podcast. We have the second largest medical podcast in the country that really discusses misinformation and information, and that's the Dr. Gabrielle Lyon Show. I'm very active on Instagram. We have a great free newsletter that offers so much information. My book, our YouTube. our ex, you name it, we're there.
And she's right here in Houston. Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, the founder of Muscle-Centric Medicine and New York Times bestselling author of Forever Strong. Thank you for joining me today on Cold Coffee.
Thank you, Celeste.